Hi, thank you for joining us for episode 6, Indoctrinated into Abuse by the Church. I am the redhead. I do have a special guest with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Mydivintyiswithin.
Would you like to tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure, you can find me on TikTok, Mydivintyiswithin8909. You can also find me on YouTube under Mydivintyiswithin8909 as well.
Okay, so I am going to let everyone know what the purpose of this episode is for, and then we're going to just jump right into it. And the purpose of this episode is to confront the ways in which many women have been conditioned by religious institutions to accept abuse, silence themselves, and remain in harmful relationships under the guise of faith, submission, or divine order. This episode explores how distorted theology and patriarchal interpretations of scripture have contributed to normalize of suffering as a form of spiritual virtue. Through lived experiences, literature, and expert insight, will challenge the issues of religion as a weapon and help women reclaim their spirituality outside of oppression. So I'm going to give a disclaimer before we get started. This is my best friend. This is how we talk. We are raw and unfiltered. And if you feel that anything that we say outside of, we're going to try not to use a lot of profanity, is offensive, go ahead and click off. So what happens when the idea of submission becomes a spiritual cage rather than a covenant of love?
It is a grounds for control, for the man. In my opinion, religious men see submission or the women submitting as a form of their love. But really it's just the man's way of sugarcoating that he wants control.
I have a question that's not in the line of questioning, and I often want to jump on a panel, but you know how I feel about going on panels. And I often want to ask men, why would a fully functioning adult in society who led her way to you and picked you as the perfect partner now need to be led throughout the rest of that relationship? Like, what about her picking you says that she needs to be led? Because that's more of her picking, if you ask me. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think they want children. So immediately when a grown man, and religious people have a history, religion in general has a history of the men being with children. They talk about purity culture a lot. And to me, like you said, a grown woman that is living on her own, doing her own thing, she's self-sustaining. Why is it that when she gets to you, she needs to relinquish control of her life for you to control everything? And I think it's because there's a subconscious programming in men of wanting to be with children, because that's the only people who will submit to you the way that men want. And that's just what I feel. They want children.
I often say that submission is a untainted woman's game. And what I mean by that is exactly what you said. I don't think that yielding to another person's will is natural. Because who is born wanting to obey someone?
Right.
That's not even natural. Let's start back in slavery. Do you think there would have been any slaves if nobody was being whipped? Do you think that those slaves would have come under submission had they not watched their husbands and wives be raped and buck broken? Or do you think that if there was no form of control, cooperation? So what do you think about in that aspect, whether that's submission or cooperation?
Well, okay, so that's a little bit tricky, but the first thing that comes to my mind is if you have a person who doesn't know much, or a person who is not like really well versed in the world, and they're cooperating with you to be in a marriage or just to be under you, to be led by you, that would mean that you're older than them in some kind of way. You're more advanced, which means that that's where manipulation can really come in, because you can control what they see. You can control what they experience, how they experience it. And to me, that's a dangerous grounds because um, for men to have that type of control with someone, um, that's to me again how abuse gets drug into the situation. I'm teaching you this. I'm responsible for this. Then they get to feel like they made you because you decided to cooperate with them when you're a grown person. Um, it's one thing to share it. To me, it's uneven if you're on the same, if you all come in to a relationship on the same level, like in the same age range, um similar finances, just kind of like on the same footing. There is no one person above the other where somebody can control the dynamics. Then that's cool to me. Experience this stuff together. Cooperating with somebody else, um because you're at a level where they may need to teach you or lead you, that's strange to me.
I hear a lot of men and women say that leadership um, has to be taught, and I differ with that. And let me tell you why how I differ with that.
Hmm.
I think that leaders are born and managers are trained.
Okay.
I think that even as a parent, because I am a parent and you're a parent, so let's use our children as the
Hmm.
analogy. Even as a parent, we can look at our children and look at them and say, you know what? This is my strong child.
Hmm.
This is my child that's a little bit more independent. This is my child that with a little verbal prompting, I don't have to say as much. So we can even look at our children and say, not saying that our other children can't be
Hmm.
leaders, but we definitely can look at them and qualify one over the other. And by saying, because this child is a self starter, if we ever have to leave home for any
Hmm.
reason and we need a babysitter, we can always put the responsible one in
Hmm.
charge. So, with that being said, I think that leadership is not gender specific. I think that it is based on capability.
Hmm.
Where do you feel the church has been harmful in upholding interpretations about leadership that traps women in dangerous situations?
Well, the church is very misogynistic. It's very um patriarchal. It's very hierarchical. So it's the whole God thing. It's the husband, the wife, the kids, the dog, the dirt, the air, whatever. Everything is always, it's always some kind of man up here. You know what I mean? And so to me, they automatically they automatically put women in a position of being inferior. Even in the Bible talks little, very, very little about women. And when it does, um, it's like they're second class citizens. So, and then some of the harmful things that are said, women are not even supposed to be able to speak up in church. I think there's even a scripture that kind of alludes to women being too emotional or erratic, and which is why they can't give messages. Even in the last 10 years, I'll say men get upset and cause a lot of ruckus on social media because there was a woman pastor in a church and they were like, oh, you're not supposed to be preaching. So if they already have this ideal of God being a man, the man being right up under God, and then the women being right up under the men, that's not even just in marriage, that's in the Bible, that's in even the congregation. Then you have an example of the pastor being a man and then his wife being under him and listening to everything that he says, and then they're also teaching these things. The church that I used to go to, the former pastors that I had, the mother, the woman, she had a set of twins, and so I remember her twin brother being the oldest and she was just a few minutes behind him. But she even talked about how she was raised to always respect her brother, to always, don't talk to him a certain way. um the way that she talked, it was like she was literally taught misogyny. She was literally taught that she was beneath him. They may not have said it to her, but this is the kind of programming that women get in the church. You are not supposed to really be taken serious. Everything that you do is to support the man. You're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to not stress him out. You're supposed to pray for him even when he's messing up. So they're already forming women to be in a position of subservience to men. And then you get married and it's like they teach you all over again, because you have to go to the mothers of the church when your husband's cutting up. You know what I mean? And he's not ever disciplined. You're the one that's being told that you have the duty to uphold him in prayer, to not grieve him, to not get on his nerve. So the whole entire institution of religion, church, all that stuff is teaching women to be quiet, to be doormats, to accept abuse, to just pray about it. but nothing. There's no accountability for men.
I will say this: growing up with my two parents that I had, and we've talked about the parental roles that they played. My mom being the person that went to work, came home, went in her room, closed the door like she didn't have children,
Mm-hmm.
and then my dad being the abuser of the household, and also being the person that cooked, cleaned, and gave us whatever his form of nurturing
Mm-hmm.
was. When I hear men talk about having men in the home because they need to be able to have some type of leadership role underneath God, and then the man disciplining the children, when I think about us being disciplined, we used to be afraid when someone said, "Oh my God, daddy's on the way home." We would jump up from playing happily, whatever we were doing, to scurrying around the house trying to hurry up and make sure they was clean. I remember this one time, and I'm not lying, and it's not funny, but I'm going to laugh because now that I think about it, it's almost like it was like a simulation. Like, this cannot be real
Mm-hmm.
life. I remember my dad coming home, grabbing a white glove. I don't know where he got it from. And he took that glove and put it on his
You
hand.
got.
I don't remember where my mom was, but I want to think I want to think that she was upstairs because she wasn't around a lot when he disciplined
Mm-hmm.
us. She was at home, but she wasn't like standing next to us when he's fussing or anything like that. And so I remember him putting that glove on with his finger and then just wiping it across the thing, saying, "Look at this. This is not clean." And in my mind, even as a child, I was like, "What the hell is
Mm-hmm.
this?" I might not have used the word hell because, of course, I was
Mm-hmm.
Christian and we weren't cursing as children, but in my mind, I did find something to be very flawed with that. When men often say we need to be in the home, the number one thing I hear them speak of is discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing the discipline aspect how I'm seeing it when it comes to men in the home?
Absolutely. And I see it in the Bible too, because when God is not pleased or is not happy, he cuts up and just kills everybody. When people act up, he gets upset. He goes on these, he's gonna kill these people. He's gonna flood these people. He's sorry that he did this. It's the same energy. To me, when they're unhappy, everybody has to suffer. Um, my dad grew up like that. My dad grew up, with both of his parents. It was five of them, two girls, three boys, and my dad was the youngest. And my dad said that all of his siblings have, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses, so they were religious, very, very religious. And my dad said my grandmother was the sweetest woman, like she was just so sweet. But my granddad would come home and beat her, beat the kids, yell at everybody. When everybody knew that granddad was pulling up, literally what you said, everybody was scurrying around trying to clean up, trying to put this stuff up, and just trying to be out of sight. And when he would come in, they said that the fear that they had of him still messes with them to this day, and they're in their 50s and 60s. And the crazy part about that is, isn't that what God says that he wants? Don't they say, isn't there a scripture that says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of what? Knowledge or something? The God of the Bible that's at the top wants you to fear him so that you'll act right and not upset him. And then the man that's under God wants everybody to act right so that you don't upset him. And everybody under him has to fall in line. Same thing. It's abusive.
What do you think about the term, "I need her to be my peace"?
That is no cursing. Okay. I want her to be my peace. I've heard men say I need a woman to be my peace. The opposite of peace, in my opinion, is chaos, hell, destruction, whatever you want to name it. And I see men as energy vampires, all of them. They could just be sitting right next to you. They don't have to talk, touch you, or anything, but they're sucking from you in some way. So so needing somebody to be their peace is because they don't have any internal resources on the inside often, which is one reason why they need religion. They need something to govern them and give them a moral compass. They need someone who is going to make them feel powerful. I think that's what it involves. I think it involves someone that will allow them to have control, which adds to making them feel powerful, because I, as a man in this patriarchal society, has gotten someone to listen to me, someone that I can lord over, someone that can make me feel like I'm the man. Because a lot of men I've been hearing say that women put them in their masculine when they submit. That's weird. But it's those kind of components. So if, as long as you make yourself extremely small to make them feel extremely big, that's peaceful to them. Open your legs up when I want you to. Cook the food. Keep the kids quiet. Listen to me. Don't nag me. Do whatever I ask you to do. And we will all be fine. That sounds like a hostage situation. But they want the hostage situation to be peaceful. That's weird.
Why do you feel that so many women feel spiritual shame for wanting to leave abusive relationships? Think about that, and then I am going to give my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm going to use my mother. You can't convince me, and maybe you can, with a little coercion. You can't convince me that my mother was happy in the relationship that she had with my father. It was almost like cult-like behavior. And I can recall a time where, and I knew that my mother knew about my dad's mistress long before he told me about the children that he had outside of my mother. I knew she knew because I can recall a time when I was younger and we had gone to the post office and checked the post office box and she got a card out from the mistress. And you can't convince me that you are not under some form of psychological, mental, and verbal abuse to be able to be a woman and then go to a home that your husband shares with a mistress, spend the night in the same bed that the mistress sleeps in, while the mistress shares the room with the children right next door to where you are sleeping with your husband in her home. You cannot convince me that that was a happy woman.
Miserable.
So I think that sometimes religion and not spirituality, because those are two different things. I do think that sometimes religion is the trap. And I do think that a lot of times that trap becomes cult-like. And when you have been indoctrinated in that, meaning have grown up, have been fed that, and that is all that you know, and then you settle down with a man who gets you pregnant by the time you're 33 with 8 children and kids, because she already had one when she met him. And all you know is him and his family because you weren't raised by your mother properly. I know you can't convince me that she was happy, but that in some form of delusion in her mind, she felt like she was.
Okay. She definitely was not happy. She was programmed, just like a lot of different women are. And a lot of women, probably during her time, your value as a woman was looked at and measured off of whether you can get and keep a man. So they put up with so much garbage just to be able to say, well, at least I got a man, at the expense of you not having a soul, though, because you've allowed this man to put you through all of this stuff. And who are you? That is something that I feel is taught to women. And I feel like the shame of, if I were to leave him, there's no telling what men say to women behind closed doors. Nobody's never going to want you. You got all these kids. Ain't no man gonna want you. Men are very good at dark psychology traits. I feel like that's really their actual personality, all of them. They are very, very proficient when it comes to dark psychology traits, dark triad traits. And so the moment that a woman starts to think for themselves and not like something that's going on, not approve of something, then here comes the manipulation of, well, you can't leave me. What are people going to say? All the weird things that they'll say. And for women who've been in those situations for so long, after so many years, I think that they just become lost. They become a shell of themselves. And again, the Bible doesn't make it any better because I don't know. The Bible and the whole religion thing, I don't fool with any of it, to be honest, because it's all toxic. Even the good parts of the Bible that they say is good, I don't believe any of that. Because at the end of the day, It's all written for men by men to control men, but men use it to control everybody around them but them. All of them are holy. They can be pastors, deacons, bishops, and prophets, and they will be sleeping with boys. They will be cheating on their wives. They will be messing around with other kids. They'll have porn addictions. So it's for everybody but them, and they use it and they weaponize it. And if that's what was in your home, I'm pretty sure that was not just. I'm pretty sure that was a tactic that was probably used at some point.
I say that often, like when I talk about even in the writing of my book, and me and you have had this discussion before.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I was ever seen my father physically or verbally abuse my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say that. But what I can say is that I know that it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it happened to us out loud, then it was happening quietly to her. And I believe that that was the triangulation between the mother and the children, which is how it often happens.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I've really seen it spill out into the children is when that woman starts to want to fight back
Mm-hmm.
and gain a little bit control. And then from that, when he sees that she's starting to fight back with him, then he starts to threaten, I'll hurt the kids.
Right.
Because before it's just control of the mother. And so it made me wonder, even in their relationship now that I've gotten older, could that have been why it spilled off into the children
Mm-hmm.
versus just staying with her? Or could he had been triangulating the children from the mother? And these are questions that, will never be answered because he's no longer here. But the mind frame that I am in today, and even as I had gotten older and built a different relationship with my father, I believe that if I asked him these questions, he would at least give me an answer, whether he would be being honest or not. But if I tried to have this conversation with my mother, she has an avoidant type personality, and she would absolutely avoid it at all costs.
Because there's probably some shame that comes along with it. But then there's also this term that we use on TikTok, Facebook, even it's pretty much everywhere, of describing women who put up with anything, it's just a pick me. And a lot of women will do a lot of things, including give their children to men for sexual purposes just to be able to be picked by men. And so unfortunately, a lot of women will harm their children. They will discard their children. They will discard family, friends, and themselves even, just to be able to be picked by a man. And men love those kinds of women because the mind is just gone. They seek validation from these weirdos, and you have to wonder what happened to them in their childhood for them to end up accepting this kind of abuse. What happened with their self-esteem? What happened with them not having a voice? Like, who shut them down? Who put their fire out on the inside for them to accept this kind of abuse? That's what makes me wonder that.
I've never had the opportunity, even as a 51-year-old woman, to sit down and have a conversation with my mom because, like I said, she's always had a type A avoidant personality. I don't care when you go to her to try to have a conversation. It's always, I don't feel good. I have a headache. And so at some point, you stop trying. And with that, do you think that we can separate God from power and control? Or do you think all three of them run concurrent together in this society that we live
Absolutely.
in? Okay.
Because God is the term God. You say the word God and it's like, oh, you can swear to God and all of a sudden you have to be taken serious. You can pray and put God behind it and all of a sudden the food is blessed. You can pray before you go on the trip. You use the term God and you're gonna get there safely and in your mind. So God has been used as a word, as a placebo to me, to make people feel better, to make people feel safe about whatever it is that they're doing. Um, and that, in a sense, that gives them a sense of control, that gives them a sense of power when they pray. But in reality, the belief is controlling you from actually facing real life. That's how I see it.
Okay. When you think about power as it pertains to men,
Mm-hmm.
and as it has always pertained to men, do you feel that men really hold any real power. And when I say men, I don't want to speak of all men, because I do know that there are some men in this society, in this world, that do hold power. When we talk about the men of our community, the Black men in our community, what real power do we think the men in our community really hold?
Zero. They hold none. Absolutely none. I mean, it's negative 20, probably negative 100. They have none.
Why do you feel that way?
Because I see it every day. Every single day in the state and city that I live in, and other places in the in the states, in the country, the femicide rates are extremely high. The SA rates extremely high. These people that go and traffic children, extremely high. The intimate partner violence, extremely high. I hear them on the internet basically doing everything but saying, just give me the power because I feel like I deserve it. They have no power. Um, to the point where I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna do that. That's taking a little bit too far. But Black men are, in my opinion, the worst kind of men. They seem to be the most diabolical. It's more than just the behaviors that they display. It's even y'all are not even doing good in the workforce. You're not even doing good in education. They've gotten on the internet and talked down on degrees, the very thing that can put you in a position as a man to excel for yourself, your children, your family, so that you can leave something of substance. But all Black men seem to want to leave behind is a trail of trauma and victims, because it's always an excuse. It's always the white man, it's always the system. It's always welfare took them out the home. It's always I came from a single parent household. It's always we didn't have any. It's always everything. But for some reason, they can't understand that Black women have been in all those same positions and more, and we still are doing way better than them, where we didn't even have rights years ago. So instead of being like the other races of men who decide to go to school, and all those men they don't come from well-to-do families. Some of them barely get over here safely. Number one, they live with other people and they transfer wealth. They work their way up. Black men want to just come from the bottom and just be up. They just feel like they just deserve it, which means that they're not putting any work in, and then they're easily defeated. And then they want to blame everyone but themselves. And this is why I tell everybody that Black men have the highest rates of narcissism. If this is what is being said in psychology, then they're the worst ones. Because when you deal with them, the majority of them, immediately you're going to see the manipulation, you're going to see the mind games. And it's not even just in a situation of being in a relationship, even the way that they do their own children. You expect your children to reach out to you and you're grown. You lie and say the mother kept them away, and some of them do. But at the end of the day, though, there are more things that you can do besides just sit and complain and run your mouth. There's no action behind anything that they do, really. There's none. They're just defeated.
As it pertains to narcissism, and me, you're absolutely correct. I may be off in the second part of the number, the percentage, but I think it's 7.4% of men are narcissistic, and then it's to the 4.6 or 4.7% of women that face narcissism. I will tell you this, that most narcissistic parents raise narcissistic children. Um, that is a fact, whether it be a woman or a man. What do you think it looks like when you step outside of that and you're now trying to build your faith outside of religion, built in your own freedom, and then built in faith? I'm sorry, built in your own freedom rather than being built out of fear, like you having to be religious because that is what is being indoctrinated into you, beat into you, read into you, pressed in you, church into you 7 days a week. Like, what does it look like to try to rebuild that faith now more so that it's rooted in your freedom to choose what you want for your life versus fear, something being oppressed upon you?
Well, um, I'm just going to tell you from the point of view, because that's the only way I can do, from where, from how I got out of it. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
I love the truth. I absolutely despise lies. And if I find out that there is some sort of lie that I've been told about something, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
piss me off. So, number one, as a person, you have to care about truth. You have to care about
Mm-hmm.
truth to a point of anger if you find out that you've been lied to. Because if you don't, to me, that's why a lot of Christians who will be challenged with things with reality and shown the truth about Christianity, they don't care about truth. And so they'll just be like, oh, well, I'd rather just be on the safe side of things and go to heaven. If it's not real, it's not real. Oh, wow, that's pretty messed up. So that's pretty messed up. So you have to, number one, love truth and despise lies. When you have
Mm-hmm.
those two things going on, you figured out that you've been lied to. Okay, so let's do some deconstructing. Let's start to look up things. Let's start to listen to some things. For me, it was like a soul's journey because I was dealing with severe um mental health issues due to traumatic situations. But I was a Christian and I was doing everything that I was supposed to do, reading the Bible, um, you know, not fornicating, not cursing, um, doing everything that I could do, going to church faithfully. Like I was doing all this stuff. I wasn't paying no tithes though, I ain't gonna lie, because I'm not giving nobody no money. I'm not giving nobody no money. I don't know how people do it, but I'm not doing it. Um, mm-mm. That is a really serious issue for me because the way I see it, if you got a congregation of 100 people and you're one person, 100 people are giving to them, and you're one of them, and they get it from so many different people. What am I getting from that? And that's why. And then also, you have to want to live in reality. What is the reality of me taking 10% of my check every 2 weeks or every week or every month and giving it to you as a church and thinking that this God in the sky is going to magically release the lever to pour the blessings down just because I decided to give them some money that's a new thing? Because apparently the Bible was they didn't have money back then. That's not even what they were talking about. So you got to have a lot of sense. You have to have, you have to despise the lies. You have to really, really want truth. You have to want to deconstruct. Um, because once I found out that I was being lied to, it was because I was doing all these things that I named, with the exception of tithing. Um, and I was dealing with the depression, excuse me, the suicidal ideation, and they never had any answers. It was always, well, read the book, well, pray. That's a demon and all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, I know I'm not demon possessed. Um, then I was also seeing a lot of different things that I didn't really care for in the
Mm-hmm.
leadership. And then this is what got me too. I was seeing a lot of women mentally struggling, emotionally struggling, but only telling the truth about it behind the scenes when there were no leadership around. But then when everybody was in church, they falling out. Pastor doing, they going out. They going under. And I'm seeing all of this stuff and I'm like, but then when I talk to you when church is over, you're depressed just like I am. So what's going on here? Because all of this is fake. So then I started looking at everything and I said, it's either one of three things. And I promise you, I had this conversation with myself in 2012. It's either
Mhm.
God of the Bible, it's either me, or it's this church. So I started checking all three. It took me about a year. I started checking all three, which is why I said I did everything I was supposed to do. Nothing changed. The depression was still there. Then I had to start thinking, why do I have to beg God to help me get rid of depression? So then I started looking at God like, player, what's wrong with you? Why am I still feeling these feelings? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Then I started looking at the church, how they ignore things, how they cover up things, how they lie about a lot of different things, how they don't really want to get to the nitty gritty. It's all about keeping you under a spell because that keeps their pockets full, it keeps the seats full, and there you have it. So that's what woke me up. And for some people, that may not be enough because for some people to keep themselves together mentally, they may still need to hold on to the religion because there's emotional ties to who brought it to them, which is their parent, their grandparent, a favorite aunt or somebody. And without that religion, the only way I can describe it once I got out of it is like there was nothing covering me, protecting me up here. What was I supposed to believe? Because when you are a Christian, your thoughts and everything are in a box. So when the box comes off you, your mind is fully able to now think further because Christianity and religion tells you to only stay with certain thoughts. So it's like, oh, I get to think far out. I get to think about this. I get to think about that. I get to look at this and read that. You have to get out of the box that religion puts you in your head, in your mind. It's a mind virus. That's why the gospel to me is really called the God spell. It puts a spell on you.
Why do you think a lot of women are labeled rebellious and ungodly when they finally become free from religion and they tell the truth about it as they see it?
Because that dark feminine energy that is in all of us, that is primal, the world, mainly men, is afraid of it. And that's one of the main, religion is one of the main um, avenues that patriarchy is perpetuated to me. Um, it's all throughout the Bible. So when a woman steps into her divine feminine, her dark energy, when a woman really steps into who she is and she's liberated, and I'm not talking about sexually, when she really knows who she is and knows her power, she's a threat. She can't be controlled. You can't, there's nothing that you can say to her because the whole patriarchal and the whole misogynistic thing and the religious thing, it's all in your head. It's all in your head to a degree. Because I've never lived under it. I've never censored a man. I've never, I've never cared about what a man thought about me. I've never ever wanted to submit to a man. Never had the desire to. I've always been rebellious. When I was in church, they used to call me a rebel and say I was practicing witchcraft simply because I was rebelling. So to me, if you decide to fall into, not saying the patriarchy isn't real, but if you allow that in your life, and this is my first time saying something like this, but it just came to me. If you are allowing the thought that a man is above you and that he's supposed to control you and that the divine order is for you to submit, have at it and see where it gets you. 50, 20, 30 years later with autoimmune disorders, high blood pressure, extreme stress, kids that you probably didn't even want because you're not supposed to deny your husband. That's weird. I mean, just all of this stuff. So I think that they're afraid because the world runs off of women's energy. And so if they can't control it, then the world is at risk.
How do you feel about feminism as it pertains to religion and a woman's spiritual rediscovery? Like, how does feminism tie into deconstructing, I guess religion and those ideologies that they were taught? I don't think that when decisions are being made in life, just on a general spectrum, you're looking at a person saying, "Oh, well, only man can be able to do that. Oh, save that for the woman." I think those things only happen inside the home. And so when it came to gender roles, and I'll give a quick synopsis of my family structure, we didn't have gender roles. Like there was no, my dad and my mom did not raise us and say, hey, you do the cooking, you do the cleaning. I never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to clean up, my brothers cleaned up. If I had to cook, my brothers learned how to cook. Like all of my brothers can cook. All of them know how to clean.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 8 of us. There was no, they can go outside and stay outside to 10 o'clock, but we couldn't go outside and stay outside. There was none of that. So I wasn't raised in gender roles. So as it pertains to feminism, and as we start coming into empowering ourselves, how do you feel that being a feminist and deconstructing religion, I have my own answers to that, but how do you feel that is playing out? Has that played out here recently as we're seeing that the men are not okay?
Well, my understanding of feminism is that it's equality for everybody, including men. So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, feminism is supposed to be equality for men and women, but the problem here is the only reason why feminism was ever needed was because men wanted to suppress and oppress women. Men were being oppressed, I guess, in some kind of way that they needed feminism too, whatever that's about. Um, I wouldn't honestly consider myself a feminist. I'm just me. I don't like labels. I don't too much care for especially group labels, because then if the group does something goofy, then you going down with it. Um, I could care less about men needing to feel equal. They've had way too much time feeling like they are better than everyone else and they can't even handle the common cold. Um, I don't believe that men are physically stronger than women when it comes to our children. And if something or someone was threatened, we would we know that strength will come from somewhere.
Mhm.
Do we have to walk around beating our chest and acting like we're extremely strong and able to lift all these pounds? No, we don't. But at the same time, I feel like this whole men are stronger than us and all that stuff, but we push out babies. Not only do we push them out, we house a human in our bodies that
Mhm.
literally suck the nutrients from inside of us almost a complete year. We are
Mhm.
pregnant, can barely breathe, have to use the bathroom, can barely sleep, and we still get up and move around. And then you have the baby and you still take care of the baby, still take care of other kids, still take care of yourself, but they can't handle the common cold. So them being able to lift something heavy or open up a jar when needed, that's a little goofy. Um, to me, um, that's just how I feel. I think that I will be the first person to say, because I'm very bold, I'm very blunt. Men are inferior.
Mhm.
Period. They just are. They don't have empathy. They don't have the ability to relate to life, which is why I think it's funny that in these institutions they come up with creation stories, because they're so jealous and so envious that they had to come up with some kind of way to include themselves in something that they've never been included in until somehow they came into this existence. Because I'm still trying to figure out how the hell they got here. So when it comes to feminism and equality, I have absolutely no clue why that would even have to be a thing, because we all should be equal as far as our rights, but
Mhm.
we're not, because you have a group of people who are so inferior that they had to make laws and they had to make a whole artificial society constructed on giving men power that they know they don't have, which is why they can't even live up to what they're living under, which is a patriarchy.
I am going to offer you the last closing remarks before I give my closing
Mm-hmm.
remarks. Is there anything that you want to leave us with today regarding religion?
Religion is a tool of division, religion is a tool of suppression, and religion is a mind virus. It's very, very exoteric, it's very surface level. It is a thief, it steals from other spiritual systems, and it's all literally to put women down and to put men in a place that they really honestly don't belong in. We need to get back, and we're actually getting back to the divine feminine rising. Is not anything that anybody can escape. It's not something that you can avoid. You're either going to get on it or you're not. And if you don't, that's fine. But the times that we're living in right now is calling for us as women, especially, to live in our true power and stop putting yourself in positions where a man is above you or you feel like you need to be led by someone, because you can't be led with someone who doesn't have empathy. You can't be led by someone who has no internal resources nor any sexual responsibility. Like, they have none. No, they just don't. So you have to really be careful as women, um to not go back into the program that some women, a lot of women to be honest, have been put under, of wanting a man to provide for them, wanting a man, to be with at night. Baby, that's your predator. He may take you out. He may take you out. So those are my last thoughts. Choose yourself.
I absolutely agree with everything that you said. If you are into religion, as I say, I am not into religion. I am a more of a spiritual person. I just saw how religion has kept a lot of women, one being my mother, trapped in the cycle of abuse. And I wanted to leave my closing remarks with, to the woman who sat quietly in the pew while her heart broke, this is for you. To the woman who stayed in the marriage for God, this is for you. To the woman who prayed for the abuse to stop instead of praying for herself to leave, this is for you. You are not betraying God by protecting yourself. You are embodying the divine by choosing freedom. Faith should never hurt, love should never silence, and your healing is holy. This is the affirmation. I am not disobedient. I am discerning. God did not call me to suffer in silence. My body, mind, and soul are sacred and not sacrificial. I reclaim my divine truth, free from shame. I am whole with continual healing. I am the redhead signing off. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.